Hi, Adam here at Twinkl, and for International Women and Girls in Science Day, we are interviewing women who are studying and working in some amazing places. Today I'm here with Dr. Felicity McDowall, who works for the Oxford University Gardens, Libraries and Museums. Hey Fliss.
Hi Adam.
You alright?
I'm good, how are you?
Us well, thank you. Happy to be here. Thanks for interviewing. So I've got a couple of questions for you about some of the incredible work that you do. And to kick it all off, your specialist subject is archaeology and anthropology, right?
Yeah, exactly.
What's that all about?
That's a very good question. So archaeology and anthropology, very similar subjects, very complementary. Some parts of the world, they are considered the same subject, but essentially both archaeology and anthropology is all about is people, understanding people. So archaeology is all about understanding the people of the past, using the physical remains, the things that they leave behind, so that we can understand how people in the past lived. So that might be finding an object in the ground and thinking, how was this object made? Who used this object? What time period does it come from? And then with the anthropology, it's all about understanding different human societies and different cultures and how they've developed through time. So they're very complementary subjects, all about understanding people better.
So basically, you can kind of like read minds.
If only. That's a good point. I mean, anthropology and archaeology, they overlap with so many other subjects. They overlap with psychology, with geography, with history, with biology, all the ologies. They overlap with so many different subjects, taking little bits from each one to help us understand people better.
That's really cool. Really interesting as well. So, I mean, I don't want to get into a tangent, but it's like amazing what you can learn by what people do and what they say. So that's really, really interesting stuff. Thank you. So my next question, in the interest of learning a little bit more about science, what's your favorite science fact?
Ooh, okay. So I absolutely love Neanderthals. Neanderthals are another human species. They lived in Europe and Asia from about 200,000 years ago to 30,000 years ago. So they were around for thousands of years. And you might have come across Neanderthals on the TV and books and cartoons. And they're often portrayed as really unintelligent, not very clever, quite animal-like. And the fact that I love is that they had a larger brain size compared to ourselves. And because of that larger brain size, they were in fact very similar to us, and that they were quite intelligent after all.
Right, so there's a lot you can learn about looking at what people did in the past, and as it turns out, they did a lot.
Exactly.
Very cool. And speaking of cool, what's the coolest thing you've done from working in science?
We went to the Museum of Archaeology and Anthropology, and they had all these really interesting objects that we could see, we could touch, we could handle. And one of these objects was a stone tool that was made by an extinct human species, Homo habilis. The name literally means handyman. So it was quite apt that I was holding the tool made by the handyman. And this tool was 1.8 million years old. And I was holding it in my hand, and it's that connection to the past, that physical connection, and that was pretty cool. I knew then I wanted to study archaeology and anthropology and hold many more cool objects.
I love that means handyman. That's so cool. So you mentioned that was a thing that got you into archaeology and anthropology. A lot of other people might be thinking the same thing. So what top 3 subjects would you recommend to them?
Ooh, that's a really good question. As I say, archaeology and anthropology does overlap with lots of different subjects. So there is no right combination of subjects to study that can help prepare you. And I would say that almost every subject is useful in some way. The top 3 that I'd suggest would be biology, having that understanding of biological concepts and the language and understanding of human anatomy, incredibly valuable. Another key subject is history, very similar to archaeology. History being the understanding of the past through written records, whereas archaeology is the understanding of the past through the physical remains. So a lot of archaeology, sometimes it uses history as well, to looking at those written records, those historical documents, to help us understand what was going on. And having that knowledge about key facts and key dates, and that ability to remember that information that you get with history is so helpful. And then English literature, probably, because it's that ability to think critically about information, to evaluate the information that you have, comparing different written sources. That's also really helpful, particularly for helping you to write reports, and to think really critically about what you're looking at and interpreting the evidence that you find.
So my next question, knowing where you are now, what would you say to your younger self?
So I think one thing is pursue your interests, because I probably, when I was partway through primary school, I had a really exciting project about ancient Egypt, and that's when I initially got interested in archaeology. And then I was told that it's not something really that's worth pursuing, and so I didn't think about it for many years until I got on the summer school. So I suppose being able to tell my younger self back then that actually, no, archaeology is something you can have a job in. It is exciting, it is fun. I think that would have been some really useful information. But also just to enjoy learning. I absolutely loved going to school. Some of my favourite memories are at school. I love learning different subjects, and I got called a geek and things like that. But actually, it's been so useful for me and my career path, and just to sort of to keep going and to keep enjoying studying and learning, because it's some of the best years of my life.
No, I was just thinking, like, I know school can be difficult for a lot of people, but I think the love of learning can be different. It just so happens that school is a place where you can go to do that. So it's very important that you take advantage of every opportunity you get at school, right? And then just develop that love of learning, though, but in lots of different ways, not just at school but everywhere.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think that really huge takeaway from that. Thank you. Some listeners might wonder if science is right for them. As a woman who's worked in science, what would you say?
Go for it. It's going to be useful. It's going to be interesting. You'll find a particular subject or a particular topic that you find exciting and interesting. And even if you decide after studying science it's not something you want to go further with, it's going to be so useful. Those skills and experience and knowledge isn't going to go to waste, and it will be useful and applicable in whatever you do, and it will come into your life in ways you'd never imagine. And so I also think it's the perfect subject for anybody that's inquisitive and curious and wants to know the how, the what and the why, because that's what it's all about. So I would just say go for it. You'll find something that interests and excites you.
So my last question, since working in the Natural History Museum, how would you say you've used science to do your job?
Well, first of all, the Museum of Natural History has a fantastic collection. It's got dinosaurs, it's got animals, it's got all sorts. It's got geology, it's got rocks, it's got minerals. And so I would say that studying biology and my biological knowledge has been really helpful for understanding the importance of these collections and the objects that we have on display. But also, I'd say the bit of science that I use the most in my work every day is the analytical skills that I gained. A lot of my work is analysing and looking at data about our visitors. It's looking at making percentages and looking at the proportion of visitors from different groups and finding out about their experiences. And so a lot of the time it's analysing that visitor data and understanding visitor behaviour. So I'd really say it's sort of the analytical skills that have been of most direct benefit, but also that sort of background biological knowledge is still really, really useful.
I think I might have to talk to you about stuff like that and learn a bit more about that myself. That sounds really useful. Thank you so much. A massive thank you to you, Fliss, for speaking with us today, and a big thanks to everyone listening in. Thanks very much, Fliss. Take care. See you.
Thank you for having me. Bye.